Today I'm headed to town to get some lumber for a raised bed garden. I like to get my garden put together before springtime. I'm going to pick up either some 2x10s or some 2x12s, about 8 foot long. Try to get this project started today. Don't know how far along I'll get, but we'll see what happens. So I've just picked me up some 2x10s and some 2x6s. Hopefully they'll give me a good start on the raised garden bed today. I'm always hearing people say, on a homestead, your best tool you can have is a shovel, or a chainsaw, or this tool, or that tool. But my favorite thing is my wheelbarrow. I use that thing every day around the homestead. So this is just regular old untreated pine. I'm going to make a couple 4x8 boxes to sit on the ground and plant a few vegetables in. Hopefully this wood will last 2 or 3 years before it starts rotting. Perhaps I should have charged my batteries before I started this project. We'll see if this one over here has any more juice. Right, so I cut this first 8-footer in half. This will be the short ends of a rectangular box. Since it's going to be 8 foot long, the other 2 sides I don't have to cut. I'm going to try to move these into position and we'll get them screwed together. I've chosen this location for the raised bed gardens because it's going to get full sun most of the day. And of course the ground is unlevel here, like every other place in my yard. And my plan is just to lay the raised bed garden on top of the ground as it sits. But if I wanted to dig out the other end, I just wonder how far I'd have to dig down. Looks like I'd have to go down about 7 inches on the opposing end just to get the bed to lay level. Sounds like a lot of work for a raised bed garden. I'm probably just going to let it lay on top. I'm only going to put a couple screws in each end to get started. And I'll come back later and put a few more in there. Now for my Cassville, Missouri subscribers, go Wildcats! So that's one part of bed number one. They didn't have enough 2x10 by 8s, so I ended up buying equal amount of 2x8 by 8s. What's crazy about it is a 2x8 is $1 less than a 2x10. Now let me cut a couple boards for the second raised bed, and I'll get those attached together as well. Let me grab that camera, we'll get to work. So I've already broke one of my 2x10s. Bet this one don't last very many years. Let me see if I can't get this repaired so I can finish this up. That's not perfect, but you know what I say, it'll do. All right, so that's the base for 2 raised garden beds. As I said earlier, I do have some 2x8 by 8s. I'm going to cut out another section and put the 2x8s on top, make it taller. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what they're going to look like. I've still got to go back and secure them together. I've went ahead and spread them apart a little bit. I put about 5 foot between them. And I've repositioned them in the yard, took them a little bit farther to the east. It's kind of hard to see where the shade is going to land right now because there's no leaves in the trees. Let me grab that camera and I'll show you the tree that usually blocks my garden. So I've got one extremely large black walnut tree in the yard. So right now there's no leaves on it. But it has a habit of shading a good portion of the yard every summer. Can you imagine what's going to happen when I get vegetables in here? The chickens are going to have their personal smorgasbord. Well, my raised bed garden project has been on the back burner for a while, so I figured it was time that I get to it. I had a couple goals in mind when I set out to do this. I wanted to make at least 2 beds. Thank you, Mr. Red. And I wanted to have these beds ready for planting by next spring. I've only spent a few hours out here today, but I feel like I'm well on my way. If you have any suggestions or ideas on how I can improve upon these beds, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I do read them and I appreciate them. Well, I'm going to wrap up this part of the raised bed gardens, and we'll finish up part 2 at a later date. Like always, I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to watch my video. And I'll catch you next time here at Little Do Homestead. Good night, everybody.